I'm BrianVee, and this is Why We Work. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Tony Verkinnes. Tony was an on-air personality, producer, editor, and you could have heard him through Burning Bush Communications, Way of the Master, and Wretched Radio. Today, I want to find out from Tony, what is vocation, and what does vocation mean to him, and what it should mean to us. Join me today in my conversation with Tony Verkinnes. I'm BrianVee, and this is Why We Work. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Tony Verkinnes. Good day, fine sir.
Dude, I'm so proud of you. Thank you for being here. I've heard my name pronounced several dozen ways, and
well, this
you're
is
the third, I think, that got it right.
BrianVee, because my last name is Vacherus, and very few
Kindred, got it.
All right, so you can be Tony V too.
I was actually at one radio station early on.
Yeah, maybe I'll change it.
I'll too close to Bobby V for me. I couldn't do it.
I'll consider that in the. Oh yeah, good point. Tony, I appreciate you coming on here. Would you be able to tell me, one, the industry, just for the way this podcast works, the industry that you've been in and what it is you're doing nowadays?
I've been in radio most of my adult life. I think I did the numbers. I played radio some way or another for 43 years, if you count some work we did in high school at the Explorer thing. Yeah. Took 2 years off for factory work, but that happens in radio because if you're not fired from a few jobs in radio, you're not doing it right. That's what they always told me. Didn't enjoy being fired, even though they told me that. But yeah, been at a ton of radio stations, played most every kind of music possible, a couple of talk radio stints, everything from polkas and mazurkas to rock and roll to Christian talk. And now, mostly I sit around the house and annoy my wife when she's home. She's still working. And yeah, I watch a lot of Netflix. I'm binging everything.
Yeah, you and I were just talking about we can get sucked in very easily, and
and all of a sudden it's 4 a.m. and it's like, oh man. But then I don't have to go anywhere. But technically, I'm retired, but I still do a one of these kind of things. We just started with a friend of mine who's he's basically my twin, except that he was born in Kansas and I was born in St. Cloud. Other than that, we're the same. Well, he's 8 hours older. He's tall. I have hair. That sort of thing. So we do a thing. We started way back when. Did you? I'm sorry. Oh.
No, it's good. And I've always liked, I mean, I've never met you personally, but I've been listening to the show that you were on for a while, Wretched Radio, and you're just the voice that you have, the sound of reason, as I said when I first just started this a moment ago, just said you
met me.
Sound of reason. And
okay.
it's and we were talking a moment ago too about work and the appreciation we can have for people who do the things they do. And I appreciate the work that you did for 43 years. But Tony, would you be able to bring us back into what would have been your very first job, even as a teenager, even if it had nothing to do with radio?
Oh, that's easy. My first job was I was the swamper for my dad's bar.
What is a swamper? Maybe I can guess.
He's the guy that comes in at 6 a.m. before school and sweeps up, make sure all the ashtrays are empty and clean, floors are clean, rugs have been shaken out, spills and icky things have been cleaned up. And on Sunday, you do the thorough mopping clean.
How old were you?
15, 16. It was my dad's bar, though, and in all honesty, on Sunday, it was a family thing.
Yeah.
We'd go to church, come back, and everybody there would be cleaning the bar, which was not as much fun as you think, because my mom was picky. Wow. The little German lady was very picky.
People want a clean bar,
I guess. And by that time, she wasn't working anymore, so I was like, Mom, go home. And then I'd re-clean it.
As you were getting into high school, where did your desire, or did you start finding a talent for radio?
Oh, well, I never had talent because it's radio. I actually was second grade.
Really? What spurred that on?
My dad had this weird little golf tournament kind of thing. Basically a one-day excuse to go out, play golf, drink beer, and have fun with your friends.
Yeah.
And by the time I got to golf in it, when I was wow, I think 16 or 17, they finally invited me. There were like 150 guys, and they took over a golf course for a day. One of the people that golfed was the sports director at a radio station, and he took me to a few games that year that he did. And I was like, he gets paid for talking about sports. What a great job. And then by the time I was in high school, I figured out there was no way I'm being a sports guy in the radio, because that is work. You know, there's nothing like doing your show, leaving for Duluth, doing the game, coming back and doing your show, and then heading over to Hardee's to do the coach's show.
What made you realize that? Did you just paying attention to some broadcasters?
Yeah, in high school we had an Explorer post that was a radio Explorer post. Hi, Mike Dime, if you're out there. My mentor, he was silly enough to hire me twice. I don't understand it. When I just watched the workings there, just on the outside of what went on in the real life part of the radio station, you looked and you thought, no, man, there's not enough money to do this. Now, if you're Troy Aikman and Joe Buck, you get a lot of money, and it's a lot different. When you're at that small market or medium market level, you do all the schlepping of the equipment, all the setup, all the interviews, all the pregame, postgame, and you get to do all your other stuff too. So that's everything. And I thought, that's way too much work for the money they pay. Because radio is not that glamorous, and it's not that big a payer when you're down in the lower levels.
So when you realized this, what were you starting to think for after high school, college, or?
Yeah, after that, I figured, well, I'm still doing radio. Because you get paid to talk and drink coffee, and how bad can this be? So I figure I'd be a rock and roll disc jockey and be very cool and make lots of money. And I don't know, that's about all the farther that went. Ended up at a couple of what we used to call MOR stations, which were basically lots of talk, a few songs every hour, lots of commercials to get through. And you have to be as entertaining as you can so you don't lose the people.
What was your first experience on air?
First paying gig was part-time at Wixie 1260 in Amory, Wisconsin, while I was finishing up school. Did 2 years of college, did not like that. You know, do you know first 2 years, they expect you to take, see, that's it. I don't know. They don't let you take any of the fun stuff. It's like, okay, here's your sociology 101, your psychology 101, your, oh my gosh, I'm bored to tears 102. You don't get, I mean, you got to get through 2 whole years before you even get a sniff of the stuff you want. Because for a while I entertained going into the news side of it. No. So I went to Brown Institute, maker of great radio people worldwide. I don't even know if they're still in business. So part-time, at the end of my term there, I was working part-time at Wixie. First job was in Marshall, Minnesota at KMHL. Lasted there about a year and a half.
Were you nervous? Your first time up there?
Scared to death. Yep. Scared to death and slow. Because besides doing your show and getting ready for that, there was production things to be done. And those are you want those to be perfect because they're going to be recorded and played over and over. And I was very slow and very particular. So there were some mornings I would get off the air at midnight, and I would be going home just before the morning guys came in because I wanted it right.
Did you feel that you had what it took, which is why you were following this, besides some unknown desire? You felt you had the voice for it? You felt
I
the
just
writing skills or anything like that?
No, I was a lousy writer. I found out pretty early, though, that I could take other people's writing and speak it like I was saying it for real instead of reading it. Apparently that's a skill.
It is a skill.
Well, you know how it is when you can do something. It's like, So I can cold read copy as good as like my pastor. We have contests sometimes in our little book thing. And all the other guys go, how'd you do that? It's like, when you read for a living, dude. You also don't make much money in either profession. I just want to know.
You got to know this.
I didn't think there was any great talent. I just thought it would be a great way to make a living. And like I said, I had goals to be a major market guy and make big bucks. So there was Marshall, there was St. Cloud. From St. Cloud, I followed Mike Dime again over to KMOM, a startup. From KMOM, I ended up at KSTP AM, which was a talk station in the Twin Cities, my first stop. And from there, I got fired my first time and went to Princeton, which is where we still live.
What did you
Because
get
my wife,
fired? Why did you get fired?
change of management. Actually, the GM and the sales manager and a whole bunch of people got canned. They wanted to. They redid a whole bunch of the shows they had. A lot of them went away and became, the syndicated stuff they do nationally. And then they moved the afternoon guy to the mornings and tried somebody new in the afternoons. And we were out. The nice part about radio is you can get fired because it's Tuesday. They just usually they keep you till Friday because that way it's easier for the shift over. And security's around and it's taste. If the new people in the business.
So thinking about being fired, were you being your first experience in the radio business getting fired, were you discouraged?
Nah, no. Yes, maybe. It was, that there's that crushing moment. It took a while. It took a week or two before everything started to settle in.
Did you question your career path at all, or I'm just going to go get another radio job?
At that point, I didn't. I know there's another job out there. Mm-hmm. Found one in Princeton, which was kind of nice because the program director in Princeton had been a major market guy elsewhere. So he hired me. Again, I don't know what these people are thinking. And I made 4.5 years working in Princeton, which is the longest I've worked anywhere, with the exception of Wretched, which was all told. Wretched was 18 years, and then 2 years before that at KKMS, which is unheard of. That's like, being dead in dog years. But no, at that point I didn't. There were other times you would. Like when I was working in the factory at Crystal Cabinets, I was thinking, is radio what I need to do, or do I need to be looking at something else? Because I ain't doing this for very long.
So yeah, how many positions did you take outside of radio through your career? Or were there a number of them?
No, there weren't many. I worked at Crystal Cabinets for a while on one stint, and I worked at...
were you manufacturing cabinets at that point?
Was I ever sanding on a line? I was awful. But I knew a few of the people there because it's Princeton. It's not a big town. Yeah. And it was okay. And I was glad they took the chance on me. I also had worked at Federal, which is a munitions manufacturer.
Were they extra income? Was it between jobs?
Between. Yeah. I would do... Every once in a while, there'd be like, if you wanted to DJ some gig for somebody, they'd pay you some money. But I wasn't really into that at all. I wanted to be a club DJ and actually make money. Again, it looks so easy, right? You work 6 hours and you make a lot of money. It's not. You've got to get the playlist set up. You've got to look the way you do. You've got to make sure everything's ready around you. They all come with extras. And I just wasn't ready to put that kind of thing, or travel, right? Live in St. Cloud and there's a gig in, I don't know, Eden Prairie. There's a 50-minute drive to and from. You got to bring the equipment, usually. All the music, usually. That never interested me. Thought of bartending for a while, but I thought that was way too cliche to be a bar owner's son and then go to bartending.
We were talking earlier about the mic that you have.
Yeah.
And how has it changed from the ability to just move around and to bring your equipment with you, and how easy is that? How easy has it become?
Well, in the old days, when I was a boy, we had to lug our equipment in the snow uphill both ways. And no, I'm not kidding. Some of this stuff was just gargantuan. The boards would be this huge. Scott and I had a gig in Minneapolis for a wedding dance. Scott knew these people really well. It was like over a Legion or something, a VFW. So we're carting the speakers, this huge honking board, and all the stuff up this large flight of stairs on the outside of the building, because you don't want on the inside. So then you get that all set up. You quickly towel off and put on a dry shirt, and now it's 4.5 hours of music stuff. And then when that's all done at 1:30, you get to tear it all down and lug it all the other way. Yeah, it's very fun.
And now you can just take.
And now, it's like a little itty bitty red box, does all the things that and the board I used to have was very small compared to everything you used to see.
Mm-hmm.
The first board at Wretched, well, was it Wretched then? Yes. First board when Talk the Walk became Wretched, was a slightly smaller version of one of the first boards I ever worked on.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wow, they still make these, and they're like tanks. Unless you drop a hand grenade in them and then hold the top down, they just don't break. And then you've got everything's slide pots and solid state. Wow, that dates me. But there's no 2B stuff anymore unless you're elite and want a tube amp for your mic.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's gotten lighter, easier, much more mobile.
So as you moved along in your career, I guess seeing that with Talk the Walk, that was your longest stint up until Wretched Radio. How did you get into that position?
I had worked with the program director there at WLOL back in the day. My one claim to fame in the big leagues. And they had needed somebody. And I was at a little Christian radio station in St. Cloud, which was okay. But the people I knew there that I came to work for were leaving. And I thought, you know what? I don't want the responsibility of being their job because I just didn't. So I called David, we interviewed, and I became the production director, which was the first time I wasn't exclusively on air talent. Mm-hmm. So I voiced commercials and then put other commercials together, all the stuff you do that you hear, And one day they said, oh, yeah, and by the way, part of your job is going to be board hopping for this guy on his show, Talk the Walk. Mm. Really? Yep. And I remember Todd's entire first words to David were, yeah, just make sure he knows to run the board and he doesn't have to say anything. We evolved from that over the years. But yeah, it was like any other business, connections help. People and have worked with you. It's like being in any trenches kind of thing. If you can count on them or not. And David thought, okay, we'll give him a flyer. And from then on, it's been mostly behind the scenes stuff with the sidekicky thing with Todd.
Yeah, you guys worked together for quite a while, and you just retired.
I did.
Just within the last few months.
Actually, August, somewhere in there. July or August was somewhere. I think the end of July, was the end of the run, which was really odd. I mean, it's coming. But
what does that feel like? What is that, 43 years in something, you do have Netflix to keep you company.
I have with Netflix, Prime, and HBO Max, so I can watch all of my DC cartoons.
So I know
if you want live action superhero stuff, you go with Marvel. If you want cartoon superhero stuff that's done really well, DC. However, not all of it is for kids.
My son loves it. My son loves it. We watch them together, but he loves it.
They're a hoot.
So how are you settling in your retirement? How is that?
I'm still working on it.
Are you doing voiceover work as well? And you have another podcast, but
we do the podcast thing. No, that was something I never enjoyed, although it paid well. Mm-hmm. But the flat up voiceover stuff was just not something I liked doing.
Is there something, just even thinking of listeners who might think of voiceover work, is there something that you just didn't like sitting and reading a script that you're not connected with? What was the reason?
I have no logical reason for this, because actually production in a radio setting was my favorite thing. And the older I got, I can hear the slip in pronunciation, in enunciation, that sort of thing in my voice and the way words come out. And I thought, no, because I'm going to end up rereading the same thing 9 dozen times, and it's never going to be different, because I'm going to have that little lisp here, that little drag there, because that's the way it's maturing out.
Mm-hmm. Did you do your show with, say, with Todd from home the whole time?
No. First, when we moved from KKMS, we went even farther south so that my drive would be 25 minutes longer, which I'm always grateful for. And I swear it took me 4.5 hours. One snowy day, they let me out early. It took me 4.5 hours to get home. I love the Twin Cities, he said sarcastically. Yeah, we had a suite up in the I can't remember the name of the building now.
Mm.
And we had 2 studios, Todd's studio and mine. Joey had a studio there for production stuff. Eventually, we brought in Hip Hop and Brainiac. I should probably remember their names. All I remember now is David Sharon and Rick. I'm sorry, Rick, I don't remember your last name. He was always Brainiac. He's one of my Facebook friends. I'm in deep trouble. We were there. Eventually, somebody saw that. I forget who it was, but somebody in Atlanta saw the show and or heard the show and wanted to know if Todd would come to Atlanta to do the show and do TV. And we thought, well, maybe we can do TV here. No, that quickly became feasibly monetarily wrong. Mm-hmm. So basically everybody but a few of us went down there. And slowly but surely we decided, you know what, this office really isn't needed. Joey and I can do what we do from home. So slowly but surely the offices were gone and we were sent home to do our stuff here. That was a little odd to get used to.
How many years were you home doing it?
5, maybe 6.
Okay.
So it was a while.
So did you have yourself a treated room, and how did that work?
No, that's pretty much it. It's a little square room my father-in-law actually built way back when we redid the basement. Put up different lighting, easy just for reading purposes. We didn't care about cameras then because I still have a great face for radio. Board was, we bought an old countertop and used that as the place to put all the equipment, and off we went.
Knowing that you're now retired, and I think you have a good, as I said, a resounding voice, a sound, the voice of reason, which you would say you don't, but the word vocation comes up, being the Lutheran that you are, the word the vocation. What does vocation mean to you, and what should it mean to other people?
Vocation is, it's what you do. And I mean that more than just a job. Mm-hmm. The people who amaze me with vocations are nurses, good pastors. Mm-hmm. Those people are amazing to me because they do what they do, and there's no glamour in it, a lot of criticism in it. People, they're not in their best form always. So vocation for me is just, it's what you got skills and talents, and it's what you do with them. So I was hoping, through the years that maybe somebody would have a little better time getting off to work or coming home from work or something. And if I got that accomplished once or twice every day, that was a good day. I don't know if I did because no feedback, but that was the plan anyway.
What was the process that you had to go through, especially from your home studio, to prepare and to deliver?
Generally, I would get down here. When we moved home, we decided doing it every day was a little weird. And actually, I think even before that, we had started recording 2 or 3 of the shows in one day and then 2 or 3 of the shows on another day. Mm-hmm. So there were 2 recording days. On those days, I would be down here early, make sure all the stuff I wanted or thought I needed would be around, and then we recorded. I did the news, so that was always something I had to put together, find the stories and present them and get them to Joey. Did a lot of the production work, same story, shorter verse. So the day would usually start 9-ish. It was a much shorter day when I actually got to move home because I didn't have 3 hours of driving, which was nice. So I'd get down here about 9:30, and I'd be done 3, 4. So it's kind of nice.
If you didn't hear it, it just sounded like you guys were together. That's the
Yes.
funny thing.
It,
You guys had that relationship and
see, there are
ability to
two things
just.
that always amaze me. I'm sorry, let me talk all over you. But there are two things that amaze me. One, that people listen, because, there's so many places to go for stuff.
Mhm.
And why would you listen to us? But they did. And two, that so many people thought we were in the same studio. I thought, wow, that's great technology. But I have been blessed 4 times with people who I've worked with who just, we talked earlier, right, about chemistry in TV shows, how they make
Mhm.
the whole show click. There have been 4 guys in 40 some years that I would work with anytime, anywhere, no questions asked, just because I trust them that much and we work together well that much. Just,
Mm. I guess that would be a miss if how was your career with Todd Friel? Because he's still going.
he
There's
is.
change in what they're doing, and but you guys seem to have a good relationship. He seems like,
Yep.
he's louder, I would say, right? He has his views, which are, great, and you
He
guys have
does.
somewhat opposing views at times,
In
but you
places.
guys
Yep.
you guys you guys worked well together, and you made it like a marriage.
Yeah. Yeah, that pretty much describes it right there. There were good days and bad days.
Hmm.
Um, I realized pretty early on, because the Lutheran conversion actually came after I'd been working with Todd.
Really?
So it's a little bit different. And I decided pretty early on that if I'm going to, hit him with every difference we have in theology, this show is going to grind to a screeching halt. And
Hmm.
let me guess, one of us will be gone. And I wasn't actually that pragmatic. It's just, you know what? It's Todd's show. Why would I want
Yeah.
to mess with him like
Yeah.
that? So every once in a while we get into it, but usually no. I liked working with him. It was always fun, usually unexpected. I can't remember days very often. All right, in the old days, we used to do Theology Thursday. Those weren't funny at all. But other than that, most days would have, a laugh or two at three in them.
Hmm.
So I enjoyed it. I like Todd and his family. I still like giving his daughters a hard time when I get a hold of them on the screen.
Hmm.
Although they honestly dish it back as well as they give it out. I love that in people. And it was a bit hard when it was over
Yeah.
after 18 years. Not as bad as a marriage dissolving, but took a minute.
That's why I was wondering about vocation. You're talking about how you work together, and I'd like to know what you think about, theologically speaking, where people become either legalists or antinomianism or
Yep.
antinomians. The idea of, well, you can't do this or you can do whatever you want in
Yep.
between, and for vocation. And you and I were talking before this about our appreciation for sports and entertainment and all these
Yep.
things, and the things that people do, and comedians. And I'd like you to just comment on, because I find there is that more legalistic view of what you can and you can't do for your vocation.
Yeah, it depends on what side you're on, of course. We tend to, how do I phrase this politely? We tend to look at through a very small prism. Our perspective is very limited, even us old folks, because 60 years matters what? Almost nothing in the grand scheme of things.
Mm.
So our perspective is entirely what we digest, what we take in, and how we process it, and how we spit it back out, which is part of the reason I ended up being Lutheran. It seemed the most even, if nothing else, of the bunch. Um, yep, there are Lutherans who are very critical of what has to be done, how, why, when, and where.
Mm.
And there are others that get, we call them the ELCA, but don't tell anyone. Um, in vocation, it's hard because depending on how you were raised, that will alter where you're going to go with your vocation. If in your head and heart and soul, you're thinking, I can't do this or this or this, you will stay far away from this or this or this. It may limit you, but you will. Otherwise, everything's open. And, we have some of the stranger ministries we've run across over the years when you get more to the antinomian sites. Did that answer anything you asked?
Yeah, it did. And I was just thinking, I know a guy who was telling his, whoever it was, I don't want to call them out, but it's like he couldn't be a pilot. You're not allowed to be a pilot because they serve alcohol on plane, right?
Yep.
You can't work
Yep.
in a grocery store because they sell alcohol, or that one off, right?
Yep. Yep.
Was it Kiefer Sutherland, like 7 degrees of separate, like you couldn't do anything.
Yep.
And
There's always,
and that is tough, right? And I'm like, well, why would
you'd be
you
a
really
bag
live
boy,
like
but
that?
only like at a store that sold no meat or alcohol. Really? All right. First of all, odd career choice. I'd never quite understood those. But yeah, I remember I've seen a pretty wide range of Christendom. I was raised Roman. Spent a few years doing absolutely nothing. Spent a few years pretty reformed, which kind of eased its way into kind of a charismatic feel to it, and then Lutheran. So I've seen a bunch, and they all have certain flavors that, no, you can't do that because it's just wrong.
Tradition.
Like, I'm not killing anyone on purpose.
Yeah.
And really, it gets to the point where if we get such a narrow view, we can't do anything. We can't buy from anyone. We can't sell to anyone. Talking to immediate family probably would be okay. It can get very narrow.
And that the idea of vocation, I think, and don't think that I know what I'm talking about, but from Luther himself, about realizing that you can glorify God if you're the butcher, the baker,
in what you do.
and what you do.
You reach out to others. That's your vocation, is what you bring to others. Like a mom's vocation, even a working mom has two vocations, which is kind of sad, but that's a whole other story. But a mom taking care of her baby is a vocation. Taking care of her family is a vocation. I'm not sure being a soccer mom or a soccer dad is a vocation, but it falls into it because you know what? You want to raise your kids to be happy, healthy, smart team players, get along with people. Yeah, so I'll put it in there. But vocation, yeah, that's it. Vocation is what you bring to others, I think, which is a big Luther thing.
And I just think it can relax some people to realize that there's almost an infinite amount of jobs out there that you can consider, and that they're, if they're providing a good product, a good service, then why not consider doing them? Because they're obviously needed. If they weren't needed, then they wouldn't exist.
I haven't found one that I would go, you absolutely cannot. Legal.
Yeah.
I'll put that caveat. Being a mobster for the Gamboni family would not be right.
Sometimes I say those mobsters come home and say, wow, it was a rough day.
What a day I had at the office. Had to whack Jimmy Small and but yeah, I'm trying to think of one. Yeah. Can a Christian be a bartender and serve alcohol? You could start a fight there.
You can start a fight, but I never thought of the question, but thinking, and don't get me wrong, anyone, but who would you rather have? I mean, someone who's going to be there, and there's the bartender's the one that's like, okay, he's had enough.
Exactly.
Down to reason.
Yep. And I'm hoping that they would care more about, at least as much, if not more, about their customers and whatever vocation they have, which was a weird part about radio. You had several people you had to take care of. You had to take care of your bosses because they paid the checks, the listeners, and the folks who bought ad time. So you had kind of three bosses to keep track of. And oddly, as you get into it, they become, I don't know if you become, buddy, huggy friends, but that's your vocation. You try to do your best to do what they need you to do.
Knowing the freedom that we hear, and I'm thinking Robert Schuller on one of his last interviews. Oh, the freedom in Christ we have, as he was talking.
That's a great line, but now I've got Robert Schuller saying it in my head.
But he was talking about, and all religions lead to Christ. So it's very heretical.
But you're right. The freedom is there, but look at the Soviet Union. How many people after the Soviet Union dismantled, how many wanted that regime back? because there was an order to it they understood and knew and could work within. Freedom is a nice thing, but everybody's going to have their different limits. And when it comes to religion, we kind of find our own limits and
It was
congregate there.
Billy Graham and Robert Schuller.
All right. Are we liking Billy these days, or is he a universalist?
We don't know.
Yeah. Sorry. I just want
that's what
else on this.
That was that clip. It was like,
yep.
But the freedom in your occupation, the freedom in your vocation is what I'm pointing out.
Yep.
And I think that's just wonderful and you can have that freedom to work in wherever you want. And thinking of that, Tony, of work and knowing that you were a swamper, new word.
It was
today. People who are getting into work, or as you have tried a couple of other jobs besides the radio industry, do you have some advice for people as they're getting into work one way or the other?
No, I really don't. I don't buy into the, we all have this one purpose in working.
Mm-hmm.
There's only one job out there for you. No, I don't think so. But you're going to find something that you're good at that you may not like. Sometimes circumstances will force it. So you do your best where you are, and who knows? If you have certain talents, use those. I mean, if we talked a little bit about football, and if you're Patrick Mahomes, you bet play football. That's what you do. And how it affects other, no, I don't have any really. Sorry. Otherwise, I'm going to wander off for days on this. There isn't. I think if you find a job you like, do that. But you will know it's a vocation. No matter what you're trying to do, it should become your vocation.
Mm-hmm. And I guess also I was wondering, advice for people who, should they work? Should they get a swamping job? Right? Or, at what age should you start working? And, if you're in between jobs, you were in between your career, you took a job as a carpenter. And some people don't do that.
We had a really easy way of it. It was like, okay, bringing something in is better than bringing nothing in.
Yeah.
It's kind of the philosophy at our house. My wife told me it was. My dad.
She wrote it over the doorpost.
Exactly. Tattooed it on the inside of my eyelids. My mom and dad worked really hard when I was a kid to start the bar up. They had just bought it when I was, a kindergartner. And I won't say that I'm a hard worker, because basically I'm sort of slothy. I can nap with the best of them. But that's, I just couldn't see if there's a job and they'll hire me. Okay, would I rather do that, or would I rather collect unemployment? Now, I did collect some unemployment 1 or 2 times.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't like it much, but it was a stopgap. If you have your choice, I think you'd rather be doing something. At least I would.
Speaking of doing something in retirement, did you, have a goal for your career? And now that you're at the end, you felt that you've reached that? And do you have a goal in your retirement, some things that you might want to do?
Wow. In the career, no, I think actually COVID stopped me.
Mm-hmm. Before COVID, did you have a little plan, maybe a few more years?
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I probably would have hung out at Wretched for as long as they wanted, except I didn't want to move to Atlanta. It's hot and they have the Falcons, and I just can't do that. I might have. I would have probably hung around Wretched. I don't think I was moving jobs again.
Yeah.
With the COVID thing, though, with the timing of it all, it's like, okay, where is a fat asthmatic guy who's 62 going to find a job that's not going to, make things worse? And I thought, So we crunched numbers and decided this might be a good time just to settle back. Scott called a few weeks ago with the idea to do the podcast thingy. Is that what it is? Is this a podcast with pictures?
Yes.
Okay, I thought they could only be audio. I didn't know.
No, I do both, just so people see it, but it does go to a podcast host.
So we've done a few of those. We record once or twice every week, which is kind of fun. Keeps me caught up with him and his family. Other than that, I've got granddaughters I want to watch. A brand new grandson this June that I want to keep track of. And you have to be very careful about that because those girls like that little baby. So you have to wrestle them away pretty quick. I'm going to do more family stuff. I'm going to do more. I've got reading things we do with my pastor and with the church I'm in. Little stuff like that. No. Do I have any grand goals? No.
Do you know what? With your voice, I mean, I say this, I don't have the voice, but I think it would be nice if you, I don't know, did some children's audio books, and then you know.
Has my wife talked to you?
It's no, not at all. But I think that would be. I mean, you have such a iconic voice, whether someone has heard it or not. But it's a soothing. It's just, there's people have it. Some people have it, and some people don't. And I think, whether you said you slur in a word or drop some endings, so do I on everything I say, and I'm just 43.
You're a pup. I have habits older than you. Well, actually, I've thought about it a little. I haven't really thought about it seriously.
Yeah.
But you're the third person now that's said I should do something.
It's a big industry. I mean, you know it better than I do, but it's a big industry, especially with technology nowadays, wanting more voice recognition and all of that.
And if you have the trouble I have is I'm a lousy self-promoter. I'm just not very good at it.
But you have a name. You have the name. You already have it. You don't. You're kind of like a sidekick to some degree, but I think you have more appreciation than you really recognize out there.
Okay, the DC movies, right? When you look at the credits, on some of them, actually some of the best of them, you will notice no names that you recognize because they are all voiceover talent. Mm-hmm. That's all they do. Is they do commercials, they do cartoons, they do characters. There are tons of them. And then the actors in Hollywood found out they could do this. So you've got them. I don't know. There might be a way to do that. I haven't really looked at it much. Now I may have to snoop a little.
Well, every time you close your eyes and the sun is shining or the light is shining in your eyes, you see that tattoo that you have to keep working. It might make you think differently. You're like, okay, give me the microphone.
She also said I should just go over to either the middle school or the elementary school, where they have people come in and read to the kids. That might be kind of fun.
Yeah.
But I fall in love with kids, and then I take them home and be arrested. My granddaughters would say, "Who's he? He's our new grandson. Shut up." And then the parents would call and say, "Can we have our kid back?" And actually, my own kids do that.
Speaking of that, Tony, is there anything that people may not understand about you? And you had 43 years in the industry, and I'm sure people know a lot about you. But is there anything people don't understand you that by knowing this, they would have a better appreciation of the work that you continue to bring to the table?
I have a strange sense of humor. I get along with most people. No. I married a crazy woman. I'm serious. I mean, she's been with me for 40 years this fall.
Well, that's why she's crazy.
She can't be that bright if she's still hanging out with me. I mean, she looks so much smarter when I married her. I'm in trouble for that one. No, I'm pretty much one of those what you see is what you get kind of guys. I'm not very complicated.
Is there any adversity that you have faced in your life that either positively or negatively affected your work, while at the same time thinking how that can encourage other people who face adversity in their work?
There have been some tough moments physically. Actually, the first thing I can think of is when I couldn't work for a while because of some health trouble my son had back when he was 10. And I'm a part-time radio guy in the cities, and these guys are sending over T-shirts and hats and stuff for my son, and it's like most of them haven't even met me to this point. It was amazing. They'd stop over, they'd talk with Eric, and these guys were the guys he would know as being, radio guys. The compassion in this business, I think, is surprising to me, which reminds me when someone else needs a help, an ear, a shoulder, a lift up. Maybe it might not be a bad idea to hand that out to them. because somebody was there for me all the time. Whether I missed time because of laryngitis or or getting knocked silly in a broomball game and then trying to go to work, that was good. Wouldn't suggest that. And people made sure that everything happened around me without me even knowing it. So in that part of it, it was like, yeah, you know what? It's kind of nice when you know people in your business think enough of you to take care of you when you need it. So that was, didn't answer your question again, did I?
Well, no, that's your adversity. Now, the idea of encouraging others who find it difficult to get up, to get going and working because they face similar things.
I realize it's hard. I do. When I first moved home to record with Wretched, and then the first few weeks after the run was over, yeah, things were a little weird. You know, I can now binge shows until 4 or 5 in the morning, and who cares? And then I don't get anything done the rest of the day, and suddenly my wife cares. And actually, I do too, because there are things that I do around here that don't get done then. Because if you do certain things in the house at 4 in the morning, people look at you funny. Like turn the vacuum off.
Why is he walking with a rake?
What's it? Is he hitting golf balls in the backyard? It's dark. I got in
Is
trouble
he
for that
chopping
once.
wood, or is he coming to get us?
It's one of those. Does he have a mask? If he has a mask, we're running. No, yeah, it just takes a minute to get into a routine. But yeah, other than that, it's been kind of a weird ride, really. But it's radio, so I kind of expected that.
Pushing through, I think, is the idea. And
sooner or later, you find a rhythm in whatever you're doing, whether you're still working, whether you're retired, whether you're at school. If you see my 3 granddaughters, who are the most beautiful granddaughters in the history of the world, and I'm not biased, they are genetically superior. You can see the difference in the 3 of them and how one really needs routine around her and how one will bring her own routine anywhere she goes. And the other is kind of a mix. And that's pretty much, wow, we just went from legalist to antinomian. And it's like that in whatever routine you're going to get into.
Yeah, I think you bring a good perspective in that just retiring and looking back on how we rush things and are hurried and we're worried and we're concerned about a lot of these things that just kind of pan themselves off if you just give it some time and practice some of that patience.
When you first got a hold of me, I thought about it. I thought, look at this. For the first how many years of my life in the professional business, 1.5 to 20 months was it. I wanted to be my next step up the ladder. And at all those like if bad weather showed up, I'd be out of the house no matter what time it was because you wanted to be at the station to get the weather alerts and help somebody who's on the air and do all this and that and that. And of course, my family was still sitting at home. I'm sure they were pretty impressed. And it's like, I look back and I go, no, you know what I remember? I remember the people. I remember some of the fun things we had, some of the hard stuff you go through. And if there's one regret, it's like, wow, I did not spend enough time with my family. And I'm in radio. I don't spend that much time at work. That's kind of sad. But I'll fix that now. Unfortunately, my granddaughters and grandson will have to pay that price, but I'm worth it.
Yeah, we can, in our jobs, I think, regardless of the position, we can easily get sucked in there for the accolades that come to it. And like, oh no, honey, I got to do this.
If I don't do this, either nobody will do it or it'll get done wrong or they'll think I don't care. And yeah, I know there are some high pressure gigs that's true. But for the most parts, if I had to do over again, I'd take a deep breath and relax a little through it.
Tony, thinking of being retired, thinking of vocation in this podcast of why we work, is there anything else you would like to add, suggest, or say to listeners?
Enjoy it. I mean, we've all got things that have to get done. So whether you're retired, whether you're working, enjoy it. When you look back at it, it's not going to be near as dark as it looks, or near as bright as it looks. Sometimes it's going to be somewhere pretty much in the middle. So enjoy it while you're there. Be in the moment. Oh, I tried so hard not to say that.
But those little cliche things sometimes actually ring pretty true.
There's a reason they're cliches. Yep. Don't get too far ahead of yourself. And, if you keep looking over your shoulder, you're going to run into a wall. Not that I know this personally, but I've hit a few walls in my day, looking over that shoulder, wondering if something's catching up to me. Yeah, enjoy it. Sit back, rest a minute, and enjoy it.
Are you big on social media? How can people get in contact with you if they want to encourage you to get into audio reading, audio books?
I'm a hermit. I have a Facebook thing. That's about it. If you go to the netradio.network, or to This Is True Really on YouTube, and that's an important aspect. You want to go to YouTube to do that, because otherwise you're going to get weird things. You can leave messages and things there that I will get a hold of, or if I don't, Scott will pass them on to me.
One final question, Tony. No, one final question.
Vikings, Twins, Wild.
Who's going to win the Super Bowl? That's not my question, but
I'm afraid Kansas City will. But part of me would really like to see the Bucs do it, and address all your angry cards and letters to me, just because Tom Brady to win one there, so I could all go neener to Belichick. But that's just my personal thing.
One real final question.
Okay.
Why do you work?
To use the talents God's given me. It's how, hopefully, I show Christ to others in some way or another. In vague terms, I know, but that's the only reason I do it. Oh, and I like the money.
Tony Verkinnes, retired, but soon to come out of retirement, like many of those athletes do. On-air personality, soon to be audiobook reader.
Now we're talking audiobooks, yeah. Thank you. It's been an honor to be here.
I appreciate the time that you've given me and the work that you continue to do.
Thank you. It's been fun being here.
Thank you for watching this episode. I'm BrianVee. Please subscribe, share, hit that notification button. And that would be an encouragement to me, knowing that you get something out of this. That's what I want to do, is to encourage people in their work, to remind one another why we do the things we do. I'm BrianVee, and this is Why We Work.